Alright, today we're going to do some spats for my Red Hood costume, and these aren't based exactly off anything from Red Hood canon, just kind of inspired by the comics and the Arkham games, and this is what I came up with. And all these patterns, of course, are up on the Facebook page if you guys want to do your own. And when I recently went to a con, I really liked the way that my Red Hood costume looked. What I wasn't happy with was the bottom of it. And I had already known this, and I'd wanted this before, but going to this con and seeing pictures of myself from head to toe really drove home the fact that I needed to make these. Alright, so let's get first things first. I have the patterns here laid out on the sheet of EVA foam, and I just took a photo of this for the Facebook page. So, if you were cutting your patterns from something you printed off from this photo on the Facebook page, there's a couple things I want to note and point out. First of all, on the inside here and here, this piece, the edge is cut at a pretty strong angle, as you can see, on both sides. And same thing with the inside here. It is cut on a pretty extreme angle. And on the inside here as well. That is so that whenever you glue these together, they have the proper shape and curve. And if you want yours less curved, you can just gradually mellow out this curve on both these pieces and on the outside edge. If you would like it more extreme of a curve outwards, you can cut it inwards more so. If that makes sense, hopefully it does. And what I cut these and these other pattern pieces here out of is some EVA foam mats that are quite frankly huge. I'm not sure how thick. I want to say 10 to 12 millimeter. The back of them has this interested texture pattern. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some barge contact cement and I'm going to run it along the edges here and here on both sets, and I'm going to glue them all together. Alright, so I have glued both of these together, and you'll see as you match up the seams that were cut on an angle, you will notice that it has that curve to it. However, the top itself is pretty flat and looks pretty wide and kind of dorky. But I am going to heat this and put some curvature and shape and some other detail pieces and stuff on it. But first, I'm going to do something I don't normally do. If you watch my other videos, you'll notice a lot of times I heat things and then I glue them together. This time I'm gluing it together and I'm going to heat it later. Since I'm doing that, I'm going to let this sit overnight to make sure the glue cures and bonds really good. And tomorrow I'm going to come back and use the heat gun and shape this up. Alright, so next order of business while I wait on the actual front part of the spat / boot cover is I want to have a kneecap part that comes up off the top of it. And this is the shape that I came up with. I also took a photo of this for the Facebook page. But essentially all this is it's a flat piece of foam. And for this, I use the EVA foam roll. It's a little bit thicker and a slightly different consistency than what I use for the main part of it. What I feel this is pretty good for is heating and putting a nice curve into. So I'm going to use my heat gun here to heat up the foam and try to get a nice rounded shape into it. Alright, now you can see the difference here is pretty dramatic between the one that I heated and the one that I did not. A few tips on using the heat gun: be careful. To get this rounded shape, I used a rounded, hard globe, a glass globe. It was sturdy enough. It wasn't thin or something like for a light that wouldn't work. But yeah, be careful. If you get this too hot, it will melt. It can catch fire. It is dangerous. And when using a heat gun, should generally only be done by adults, unless you have supervision and they know that you know what you're doing and they allow you. Alright, now that these have had the overnight time for the glue to cure, I went through and used my heat gun and ran it over the front and then a little bit more heavily over the back. I just worked the shape into it that I wanted. You can see it's curved pretty heavily here at the bottom and at the top and flat in the middle. And of course at first this looked rather wide and bell-like, but now that it's curved, it doesn't so much. If you have really skinny legs and calves, you may want to slim this piece down. And this is what the curved caps are for. These are going to be for the knee area, coming up off the actual front of the spat slash boot cover. And to glue these on, I'm going to use just some regular old super glue, and once the super glue sets, I'll probably go on the back of it, maybe underneath it, with some hot glue as well. I'm not going to use barge contact cement because it is quite pricey, and this is what I consider to be a static glue. I want these two pieces to be firm and stiff. I don't want them flexible. If it's something I need to flex, like this edge here, then I'll use the contact cement. But when I don't, I use this to save myself some money. Alright, so I have cut out some accent pieces here that I'm going to glue on top. Although first I'm going to take this out and start drumming and sanding down everything and smoothing everything out. Alright, I have both the right and the left all smoothed down here to help even out those seams and edges. Did that on both. I even go through on the inside a little bit, just so it doesn't stick on my pants or catch on things too much, because it'll cause it to crease and wrinkle and everything else if you're always catching it on things. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and glue on the outside accent piece. Okay, I am now gluing these accent pieces on, and to glue these on, I'm just using my good old trusty super glue. I'm gluing it down in the center first, and once that adhesive cures and sets up, which is only about a minute or so. That's one nice thing about super glue. It is rather fast, but yeah. Once it totally sets up, I'm going to start gluing these side pieces down, and then I will just trim off my excess. Alright, now that I have my accent pieces glued on and I trimmed off the excess, I took my Dremel and I smoothed out the inside of these spats, and I'm trying to take off some of this texture, and the reason for that is it just glues better whenever you remove this texture. And what I'm going to be gluing to this is some pleather strips that I have, and this pleather is semi-stretchy, does have a little bit of give to it, and the blue side is not going to be out, the black side is going to be out. This blue side does not glue very well with any adhesive that I have experimented with. I can get the adhesives to work a little better by sanding all this down somewhat before applying contact cement or anything. Once you sand it a little, it does stick a little better, but I kind of hate it. So I'm going to glue it on the inside, and then I'm going to put my Velcro on this back side and a Velcro piece on the inside here. And to do all that, I'm going to use contact cement. So for the bottom part of this, what I'm going to use is some 1" and 5/8 elastic. And this stuff sticks pretty good. I feel like this side adheres better than this side. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But that is going to be glued on the bottom with the pleather. I now have the straps and Velcro, etc., on the back side, all glued on. And next I took and cut just a couple detail lines in here. The rest of it I don't feel like I needed anything, but just right there for some reason I felt like I needed these detail lines. Like I say, not really based off of anything in particular, just inspired by all Red Hood spats, boot covers, shin guards, whatever you want to call it. And now I'm going to take my handy paintbrush here, and what I've done is I've mixed together some Mod Podge with some black paint, and I mixed it together separately in this little Tupperware here. so that now I have basically black Mod Podge, so I can provide a primer coat as well as seal it. Easiest way and quickest way, if you don't count dry time, is using Plastidip. Plastidip you can pretty much get done in about, say, a half hour to an hour. It'll be pretty much dry enough you can paint on it, but really you should let it sit for 24 hours. But it's just so quick and easy to spray on a few thin coats, letting each coat dry for about a half hour, but it's also kind of expensive. Doing as many of these projects as I do, it's like $6-7 a can. So you add that up, I do like 5 to 10 projects in a month. That's $30 to $60 just on Plastidip. This, however, is cheap and goes really, really far, and pretty much does as good of a job sealing it. So that's what I'm going to use. Alright, so now that this has had ample time to dry, I am now going to use my airbrush, and I'm going to paint this up. And what I do is I mix some opaque black with some gloss Mod Podge, which will give it a nice glossy black finish, because parts of this I'm going to make look metallic, and other parts, like I think the centerpiece here, I'm just going to have red, and then the rest of it's just going to be the gloss black. Alright, now that my gloss black is dry, I have this Wicked Colors by Creatix. It's Wicked Silver. Kind of silly. But yeah, I thinned this out incredibly. This is severely watery. And I have my air compressor set a little bit below 20. The working pressure is probably around 13 to 15 psi. And like I say, it's very, very thin. And the reason for this is I can slowly go in from the center and just kind of work my way out and don't have to worry about getting too much on. Okay. I don't even know if this is really going to show up. Yeah, it shows up a little bit on camera. But just to give you an example, it's rather thin. And this, I can avoid masking it because as thin as it is and as low as the pressure is, it pretty much just goes wherever I want it. So I just gradually layer it up. And this does take some time. But I'm explaining it just in case you're interested to how I get this look. Because I feel like whenever you take chrome spray paint or gold spray paint or this stuff, and you just put one solid coat on, it looks tacky. But I was watching a video on Hollywood prop making for films, and they were showing painting something to make it look metallic, gloss black, and then doing a thin, even layer of this over the black. And that way it's not solid, and it gives it a realistic metallic look. So I've been trying to incorporate stuff like that. Excuse me. So now that the silver is dry, you can get more of a good look at it here, and you can see, once again, I was saying, at least I feel, this looks more realistic than just painting it a solid silver. And then I can highlight areas like, for example, the center of this has more of the edges because you'd be kneeling or kneeing people or doing Lord knows what as the Red Hood wearing these things. And over here you can see I've already started to put some red in using the same technique. Okay, so this one's a little bit more dry, but still not quite dry. And until it fully dries, like you see that shiny spot, that's a spot that's still wet. Pop this in front of my heater for a second here. Okay, that's a little better. But what I did here was I put it more solidly in the center and thinned it out towards the edges. Okay, the red and everything has had more than enough time to dry, and now I'm going to use some clear acrylic gloss coating. This is also going to help match up with the actual Red Hood helmet, the symbol on the chest, and the knuckles on the gloves, especially this red area. Okay, so you probably noticed I didn't put a lot of this sealer on the side. Reason for that is, well, sorry, not sealer, but gloss coating on the side. Once this stuff dries, it gives it a nice, beautiful, shiny gloss finish, yes. But it also is very brittle. So in places like the sides where the foam's going to flex somewhat, I didn't really put any on it. And that's just because once this flexes, it's going to put cracks in it and look kind of goofy. I don't have to worry so much with a static area like the front here, but with the sides, I don't even bother with using this stuff. Alright, so I'm really happy with the mobility. I like the way they turned out. I'm pretty stoked. I feel like this is going to fit in with my costume quite nicely. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get another one out before the new year, but apparently I am, because I just did this. I wasn't sure I was going to have the time, but this was pretty straightforward. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and it inspired you to make some things of your own. And as always, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more content like this.